The Chinese Communist Party is committing crimes against humanity and genocide against their Uyghur population inside their western Xinjiang region. In fact, according to a 2021 Human Rights Watch report, the official figure of Uyghur Muslims put through China's prison system is 1.3 million people. You might already be familiar with these atrocities, but what you probably don't know about is the cold hard geopolitical and economic excuses as to why China's doing this. Because from China's perspective, controlling the Xinjiang region is absolutely necessary to guarantee their position as a global superpower. Without an ironclad control over Xinjiang, it would mean China's multi-billion-dollar Belt and Road investment projects that connect them to the rest of the world would fail. They would lose control of vital oil pipelines and natural resources. China's leader, Xi Jinping, is forcing this ethnic population of about 12 million people to go through political re-education camps, forced sterilization programs, forced labor, and summary trials without a jury. And perhaps worst of all, there's overwhelming evidence from 71 different papers that the CCP kills at least 25,000 people each year from Xinjiang and then illegally harvests their organs. This is the largest scale detention of ethnic and religious minorities since World War II. The Xinjiang region is too strategically important for them to allow any kind of independence movement to get off the ground there, which is what they claim they're facing from the Uyghur population. And many people don't know this, but the region is actually home to China's sensitive atomic weapons testing sites, which there have been satellite evidence that they're getting ready to resume testing soon at Lop Nur. This is a dried up salt lake in Xinjiang, where China has conducted 40 nuclear tests since they first started in 1964. According to the publication scientificamerican.com, a few 100,000 Chinese people have likely died as a result of the radiation from atomic tests here. They've built 5 underground nuclear tests at Lop Nur. The fact that they're excavating the 6th tunnel here is proof that they plan to resume atomic tests. And so if today over 1 million people need to be imprisoned because of this strategic interest, from China's point of view, so be it. And who is there to enforce this genocide? The People's Liberation Army, by marching thousands of soldiers in a show of force through the streets. The Xinjiang military district itself contains an estimated 70,000 Chinese troops, a massive deployment larger than their Tibet district that has 40,000 soldiers. China doesn't see this mission in Xinjiang through the prism of human rights. They see it through the lens of geopolitical security. This genocide is worse than you think because China views it as vital to their national security, which means US sanctions won't work. It's important to note Beijing has long denied accusations that it's been targeting ethnic Uyghurs, but the last several years have seen a flurry of investigative reports and secret drone footage that have revealed proof of the Uyghur Muslims interned at camps across western China. All of this shows the CCP totalitarian practices within its own borders and disregard for international norms and basic moral principles. From China's point of view, expanding their borders to the west to its natural geographic boundaries of the mountain range there is vital to their security no matter who lives there, extremists or not. From their perspective, it's like a version of the United States' manifest destiny when the US expanded to California in the mid-1800s. This is likely why China thought the West would be sympathetic to their operations in Xinjiang, because according to them, it resembled the US war on terror and the US expansion west. But this has not been the case. This issue is important precisely because it's had the opposite effect on US-Chinese relations. Suppression of the Uyghur population has been a major point of contention, driving the US and China further apart diplomatically. In fact, former US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, on Trump's last day in office, made an official statement saying, quote, "This genocide is ongoing, and we have witnessing the systematic attempt to destroy Uyghurs by the Chinese Party state." China's long history of oppressing the people of Xinjiang and the region's strategic importance reveal to us just how hard it'll be to resolve this issue. But first, I think it's probably obvious to everyone by now that I have an endless curiosity for all things military and geopolitical related. That's why I think you'll be interested in this video's sponsor, CuriosityStream, a video streaming service offering award-winning documentary content that you can't find anywhere else. CuriosityStream is focused on science, history, and technology stories with a massive catalog of films and series spanning everything from music and food to nature and military history. With new content dropping every week, there's plenty of fresh and interesting topics to be sure to entertain and enlighten pretty much anyone out there. And it's available across all your devices, so whether you like to watch on TV, computer, or your phone, they offer monthly and annual subscriptions with plans starting at under $5 a month. And now, they're offering my viewers an entire 25% off. Just head over to curiositystream.com/taskpurpose or scan this QR code and use promo code TASKPURPOSE to save 25% off right now. Situated in the northwest of China, the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region encompasses 1.66 million square kilometers, or roughly 1/6 of China's entire territory. There are 25 million people who reside here, about 12 million of which are Uyghur Muslims. It's about the same size as the country of Mexico. Located at the crossroads of Central Asia and East Asia, this predominantly arid desert area is endowed with majestic mountain ranges and abundant energy and mineral resources. It has, for the most of human history, been a hub for economic and cultural exchanges between the East and West. Today, the autonomous region borders 8 other countries, these being Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Mongolia, India, and Russia, making it a lucrative doorstep for China to extend its economic and political influence into the Eurasian landmass. Historically, Xinjiang has always been an important foothold along the ancient Silk Road trade network, which carried goods and ideas between the many great and diverse civilizations of the ancient and medieval world. That is, until 1453, when the Ottoman Empire effectively severed European kingdoms from traders east of modern-day Turkey, eventually leading itself to European advancements in maritime exploration and trade, which made this thousand-year-old land route which went through the Xinjiang region obsolete. The Chinese control over Xinjiang virtually diminished following the collapse of the Qin dynasty in 1911. It was not until 1949, under the leadership of Mao Zedong, that the independence of Xinjiang was abolished and the territory was annexed by the People's Republic of China. Mao Zedong said it himself, quote, "The Han nationality has the population. The minority nationalities have the land. It is thus imperative that the Han assist the minorities in raising their standard of living and socialist ideological consciousness, while the minorities provide the natural resources necessary for the industrialization and development of the motherland." Mao sent his ruthless general Wang Zhen into the Xinjiang region. He led his troops easily conquering through the land, destroying any resistance they met. From their perspective, they did this to stabilize the area. We can see the beginning of the philosophy of how it would be governed by a quote from General Zhen, who said, "We must use cannons to reason and bayonet to teach." Very different from the hearts and minds strategy. This is when Xinjiang became an autonomous region of the People's Republic in 1955. From China's point of view, this was their manifest destiny. From the people who were already living there, their point of view was that the land was being stolen away from them. The region's official name suggests that the Uyghurs have a degree of autonomy and self-governance, but similar to the neighboring province of Tibet, Xinjiang is a tightly controlled region of China. Since the 1950s, Beijing has pursued a policy in Xinjiang aimed at reducing Muslim influences in the region through the forced relocation of Muslim communities while promoting Han Chinese to settle in their place. Han means they're the ethnically Chinese people sent to repopulate the Xinjiang region with the goal of making Uyghur Muslims the minority. This policy led to a significant increase in the Han population in Xinjiang, which grew from 6.7% in 1949 to over 40% by 1980, and further rose to 60% by 2018. This is called the Hanification of the region. This policy is still in force to today. The early 90s is when we started to see resistance movements in Xinjiang, and that escalated into the 2000s. In 2014, attackers used 2 SUVs, plowed over crowds of shoppers while setting off explosives. 31 died, and over 90 were wounded, with most of the casualties being ethnic Hans. In the early 2000s, the clashes between the Uyghur and Han population led to foreign oil firms pulling out of a pipeline project. It's often stated that China's Belt and Road Initiative started in 2013 under Xi Jinping, but I think the groundwork for the Belt and Road was laid far earlier. I think evidence shows it started in 1999 with China's Go West, or Great Leap West, campaign. This was the project to develop the resource-rich Xinjiang region. China's president at the time, Jiang Zemin, declared that the development of the western part of the country was crucial to China's stability, the Communist Party's hold on power, and the revitalization of the Chinese people. Even the name of China's campaign, Go West, is a reference to America's expansion into the western part of their own country that ultimately led to them becoming a superpower. It's a reference to New York Daily Tribune editor Horace Greeley's 1865 cry to "Go West, young man," telling adventurous Americans to conquer the western part of the country. And what we're seeing today in China has some parallels. China's vice premier, leader of the Go West campaign, even commissioned a detailed study of the takeoff of the American West in the early decades of the last century. But a 2003 publication in the Denver Journal of International Law and Policy by Matthew Moneyhan explains that this is a suspect comparison, very sus indeed. In fact, there are more differences than similarities between the two projects. First, there is a dramatic difference in prevailing economic systems. The pursuit of property drove the development of the American West. In China, however, land still belongs to the state, and the central government has no plans to cheaply sell or freely distribute land to pioneers. In the 21st century, the international community generally does not tolerate conquest and subjugation of minority rights. Critics of the Go West plan have pointed out that just as America's thrust westward translated into sweeping and often negative changes to the lives of Native Americans, China's Go West campaign also has serious implications for the indigenous populations of China's West. And this is what ended up happening. The Chinese military and police cracked down on the Uyghur political and religious activity. Since January 1997, Amnesty International has recorded 210 death sentences, mostly of Uyghurs convicted of terrorist activities after unfair and often summary trials, meaning without a jury. The Chinese hope here was that they could use their increasing economic wealth at the time to calm down ethnic tensions in the region. And wealth certainly did increase. Wages have gone up 470% here, and you can see from this graph that the GDP has skyrocketed in Xinjiang region since 1979. But money isn't everything, and what happened instead was the opposite effect because the existing Uyghur population believed their natural resources and land were being plundered by the Chinese Communist Party. They saw this as nothing but Chinese colonialism. By the end of 2007, the Go West campaign had created 92 construction projects with an investment of about 100 billion USD, one of the biggest of which was a new railway that connected Xinjiang with the rest of China. Then, in 2013, Xi Jinping announced the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, aimed at connecting China with Central Asia and Europe through a number of transport infrastructure projects and communication networks. It would raise millions of people out of poverty and increase China's GDP by billions of dollars, much of this infrastructure passing through the Xinjiang region. To prevent stability issues from stopping investment in the future, starting in 2016 and up to 2021, increased suppression operations were led by Xinjiang CCP Secretary Chen Guanggu, who dramatically increased the scale and scope of the camps. In fact, experts estimate since 2007 about 16,000 mosques have been razed or damaged, because in 2014, China's leadership declared a people's war on terror, directly after a series of attacks that happened in or were linked in Xinjiang. China tried to connect resistance movements there to Al-Qaeda and the Taliban to gain sympathy from the United States. It sounds like China's even copying the United States rhetoric when it comes to justifying use of military force. Xinjiang's strategic importance to Beijing is partly attributed to its geology and topography, which serves as a natural buffer zone, insulating China's core population from conventional attacks. Xinjiang represents one of the 4 buffer regions that protects the Chinese heartland, where over 90% of China's population resides. In order to really understand the Chinese perspective on this region, we have to fully understand the following. China believes failure to control Xinjiang would lead to chaos and civil disorder that would threaten China's ability to unify China, which would lead to mass unemployment. They believe showing weakness here would embolden people to rebel, which would cause even more violence and death. What the West thinks of as the rights of man, the Chinese leadership thinks of as dangerous theories endangering the majority. China's population is very unevenly distributed across Chinese territories, with 94% of their 1.4 billion people living in the Chinese heartland. This is because eastern China is more favorable for development on account of its expansive flat plains, temperate weather, and abundant water resources. Western China, on the other hand, presents challenges to development as it's characterized by the arid Gobi Desert, along with the elevated Tibetan Plateau. Xinjiang, along with the provinces of Tibet, Inner Mongolia, and Manchuria, effectively serve as a kind of Great Wall of China, except it brings in far less revenue from tourists. Throughout history, these regions have been under Chinese rule during times of strength, but have broken away during periods of weakness. This is why China sent in a special construction version of their armed forces that is key to understanding the oppression and genocide taking place today. The group called the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, also known as XPCC, was established to control this area for China. General Wang Zhang, from 1949, the guy we talked about earlier, he's actually the one that set this group up. The XPCC has built farms, towns, and cities, provided land and employment to disbanded Chinese military units. It operates prisons and is a publicly traded company. It's responsible for 17% of the region's GDP, which is why China claims without their presence, there would be mass unemployment in the region. The mechanism that China has resettled millions of Han migrants from other parts of China is what's called a campaign of forced assimilation. At the end of the 20th century, XPCC's military role was given instead to the Xinjiang Military District, a part of the current Western Theater Command that includes all of Western China. XPCC was sanctioned by the United States in 2020 when they cited alleged human rights abuses. The United States Commission on International Religious Freedom Commissioner remarked, "Now no business can claim ignorance of China's oppression of the Uyghur people. We hope the sanctions signal to other Chinese officials that there are costs associated with taking part in the Communist Party's repression of religion. The world is watching, and we know which officials and entities are responsible for the abuses against the Uyghur people. The XPCC is essentially a parallel government in Xinjiang and has been directly involved in implementing the surveillance, mass detention, and forced labor of the Uyghur people." China's economic success over the past few decades has in part been predicated upon extracting energy and mineral resources from its western provinces and transporting said resources to its eastern provinces. The region boasts extensive deposits of coal, silver, copper, lead, nitrates, gold, and zinc. Xinjiang is a critical region that has helped fuel China's economic machine, containing over 20% of China's coal, natural gas, and oil resources. Xinjiang holds the highest concentration of fossil fuel reserves in the entire country. For instance, the Caramay oil fields, discovered in 1955, continues to be one of China's largest natural gas reserves, despite reaching peak production in 2000. It also serves as a key transit route for diversifying its oil resources given its proximity to Central Asia republics. Most notably, the nearly 3,000-kilometer-long Sino-Kazakh Oil Pipeline Co., established in July 2006, which marked the first transnational oil pipeline connecting Kazakhstan to China. And guess where it connects in China? Bingo, Xinjiang border. This region has an indispensable role in fueling the nation's progress, thus making it strategically valuable to China. Western China provides extended access to the Arabian Sea through Pakistan and to the Indian Ocean and the Persian Gulf. For this reason, the Belt and Road Initiative will have 6 out of 8 Sino-European railways run through Xinjiang to connect the entire country to Eurasia and beyond. In this way, Xinjiang has become something of a geographic linchpin for economic connectivity across Eurasia. The whole BRI promises to have huge implications for China's trade relationships and global influence at the center of this region. In Pakistan alone, there's the largest flagship project, the BRI, costing $65 billion, which runs from Pakistan into the Xinjiang region. This is why Beijing is so willing to crush any dissent in the area by any means necessary. As the hub of the BRI project, the Silk Road of the 21st century and beyond, assuming Beijing's strategy works out for them, Xinjiang has been the recipient of billions of dollars worth of investment and commerce, with the province accounting for over 80% of trade with BRI states in 2019, hosting 3 out of the 6 economic corridors of the BRI. There are new security concerns now stemming from Afghanistan following the complete withdrawal of US armed forces. This has added another layer of security considerations for the BRI's mission in South Asia, as the Taliban newfound strength resulting from the withdrawal poses an increased risk to the infrastructure projects near the Afghan-Pakistan border, as insurgents are anticipated to escalate cross-border attacks. So now China is doubling down on their genocide. The strategic importance of BRI projects has compelled the CCP to only intensify its past practices of oppressing Xinjiang and Uyghur Muslims for two key reasons. First, BRI projects will enhance Xinjiang's connectivity with countries in Central Asia and the Middle East, and that means that the Muslim population in Xinjiang will be more widely exposed to the external influences from its neighboring Muslim regions. In Chinese Communist Party fashion, they like to tightly monitor and control what foreign influences get soaked up by its core Han Chinese citizenry. The CCP has been meticulous when it comes to controlling the political narrative in Xinjiang. Beijing focused on re-educating the Muslim minorities in Xinjiang so China could fortify the population against the external influences when it launched Belt and Road projects, though this has largely failed. Second, the projects initiated under the Belt and Road contribute to the oppression of Uyghur communities by creating favorable conditions within international politics. This is evident as numerous nations, including Muslim majority nations, have shown a tendency to support China in international forums due to the substantial financial benefits they receive from Chinese investments through BRI programs. From a Western perspective, it would be expected of Muslim states to unite and speak out against the CCP's severe mistreatment of Muslim minorities within its borders. However, these Muslim countries remain surprisingly silent concerning the religious and cultural oppression occurring in Xinjiang. More than silence, some even express overt support for Beijing, praising China's human rights record in Xinjiang. In July 2019, 22 mostly Western countries issued a joint statement at the United Nations Human Rights Council criticizing Beijing on Xinjiang issues. However, the following day, another joint statement was released by 37 countries in defense of Beijing's actions. Surprisingly, almost half of the signatories were Muslim-majority nations, such as Pakistan, Syria, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan. Together, these nations effectively blocked a Western proposal at the United Nations, which called for China to permit independent international observers to assess the situation in Xinjiang. So now we have no eyes and ears there. The government of Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan have additionally voiced support for Chinese detention centers, characterizing Beijing's efforts as a battle against terrorism and separatism. This demonstration of Muslim solidarity in support of China's suppression of Muslims in Xinjiang highlights the significant diplomatic and economic influence that China wields. China set up the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which successfully persuaded these nearby countries to ban Uyghur separatist groups from residing safely in their borders and to extradite suspected Uyghur separatist refugees. China used their economic weight to destroy their safe havens, drawing linkages between Uyghur Muslims, violent spillover from Afghanistan, and regional insecurity to justify Uyghur suppression. To summarize, the region holds great importance to China's national interests for three key reasons. First, it boasts abundant energy resources. Second, it serves as a buffer in the northwest, safeguarding China's core. Lastly, it serves as a crucial doorstep for China to connect with Central Asia and the Middle East, serving as a vital intersection between East Asia and Europe. The daunting issue for the CCP is that its economic and political future for China runs through a region which China's political class has been fighting for over a century. So, should the US and its strategic partners intervene to stop this? Hopefully there's a moral imperative among all of you watching that tells you to say yes. Yes, the US and its allies should do something about this. This subject raises some complex and deeply unsettling questions that might not receive any neatly tied up answer with a bow on top. If you want to take action and do something yourself, the UyghurHumanRightsProject.org has a website that helps people take action. This includes how to contact your member of Congress to support legislation like the Stopped Forced Organ Harvesting Act of 2023, information on how to volunteer, and how to stop supporting companies that use China's forced labor system. I'm your average infantryman, Cappy. Thank you for watching.